I needed a break. Not just a vacation, a full escape from my life. After my breakup and losing my job all in the same month, I was spiraling. Therapy helped, but I felt like the walls of my small New York apartment were closing in on me. So I did what many people in my situation might do. I booked a solo trip to Nova Scotia, a cozy little town near the cliffs, promising quiet, healing, and ocean views. The Airbnb listing was picture perfect. Rustic cottage with privacy, nature, and charm. I remember thinking how it felt like fate. The host, a man named Steven, had glowing reviews. Everyone praised how attentive and helpful he was. A few even mentioned how clean the place was, which made me feel safe. As a woman traveling alone, that mattered. When I arrived, the cottage was just as lovely as the pictures. Wood-paneled walls, soft lighting, and the kind of silence that soothes your soul. I breathed out for the first time in weeks. Steven wasn't around to greet me. He'd left a note on the counter with the key and Wi-Fi password. I unpacked, took a hot shower, and curled up with a book. That first night, I slept like a baby. But something felt off the next morning. That I woke up to my suitcase zipped shut even though I left it open. I brushed it off, thinking I might have done it groggily. Then I found my phone moved from the nightstand to the kitchen counter. Maybe I forgot I carried it there. But it wasn't until the second night that things started to feel undeniably wrong. I was brushing my hair in front of the mirror when I noticed a blinking red light above the curtain rod. I froze. At first, I thought it was just a smoke detector. But when I stood on a chair to check, my stomach dropped. It wasn't a smoke detector. It was a tiny, black circular lens, barely bigger than a quarter. A hidden camera. I felt the blood drain from my face. Who puts a hidden camera in a bedroom? And then I saw something else. On the inside of the air vent in the bathroom. Another small black circle. My heart was pounding so loud I could hear it echoing in my ears that I was being watched. I backed away from the vent like it was a snake about to strike. The bathroom suddenly felt like a trap, not a safe space. I turned off the light and walked out quickly, careful not to make any sudden moves that might alert whoever was watching. My hands were shaking. My brain was scrambling to catch up. A hidden camera? In the bedroom and bathroom? I grabbed my phone and Googled, what to do if you find a hidden camera in an Airbnb. The search results made my stomach turn. Check smoke detectors. Look inside alarm clocks. Look for tiny holes in picture frames. I swallowed hard and started searching. Behind the bookshelf, nothing. Inside a lamp base, cleaned up. But then I spotted the rustic wooden clock on the nightstand. A cute, vintage-style clock with a small glass front. I picked it up and peered closely. There it was, a hole in the 6 of the clock face. Too small to notice unless you were looking for it. Another camera. That made 3.my skin crawled. I looked around the room, suddenly unsure if anything was real. Had he been watching me sleep, shower, undress? I pulled on my jeans and sweater, grabbed my phone and bag, and stood in the living room like I was in a crime scene. My instinct said, leave, now. But I hesitated. I needed evidence. I pulled out my phone and started recording a video of the cameras, narrating everything. The one in the curtain rod, the one in the bathroom vent, the clock. I emailed the video to myself and to a close friend with a single line. If anything happens to me, start here. As I finished recording, a loud ping came from the house speaker system. It startled me so badly I nearly dropped my phone. Then, a man's voice came through. Familiar. Calm. Too calm. You shouldn't have touched the clock. I froze. My heart slammed against my ribs. I didn't want it to be like this. I was just making sure you were okay. The voice was coming from the speaker system in the ceiling. It was Steven, the host. I felt like I couldn't breathe. I tried to open the front door, but it was locked. I swear I unlocked it earlier. I jiggled it hard. Nothing. The voice came again. Just calm down. You don't need to leave. This is a misunderstanding. Open the door. I screamed. Don't be dramatic, he said. You liked the place, didn't you? You slept great last night. I saw you smile. That's when I realized. He'd been watching everything. He must have seen me dance to music in my pajamas, cry in the bathroom after reading an old text from my ex. He watched me sleep. I ran to the kitchen and grabbed the biggest knife I could find. I wasn't going to be a headline. I wasn't going to be another woman who vanished on vacation. Then I remembered. There was a back door. Through the laundry room, I sprinted. It was stiff, old, but not locked. I shoved it open and burst into the freezing night air. I didn't stop running, not until I reached the next house half a mile down. It was dark, but I pounded on the door like my life depended on it. A woman in a robe answered, terrified. I babbled something about being watched, about cameras, about Steven. She took one look at me, wild hair, shaking, barefoot, and said, "Come in." She handed me her phone. I called 911. The police arrived within 20 minutes. By then, I was wrapped in the kind neighbor's blanket, sipping lukewarm tea with shaking hands. I couldn't stop glancing at the windows, half expecting Steven's face to appear in the dark. Two officers walked in. Officer Riley, calm but firm, and Officer Mendoza, younger, taking notes. I showed them the video I had recorded. Their faces went from skeptical to serious in seconds. "You did the right thing by getting out," Riley said, looking me in the eyes. "We're going over there now. You'll stay here. Can I come?" I asked. "No," Mendoza replied, "but we will need a full statement later." I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. Half an hour later, Riley returned. His expression was tight. "He's not there," he said. "What?" I stood up. But he was speaking to me through the speakers. "He's not on the property." And the front door was unlocked when we arrived. "But it was locked when I tried to leave," I insisted. Mendoza came in behind him, whispering something. Riley's face changed. "You need to come with us." Back at the cottage, it looked different in the harsh glare of police flashlights. Cold, exposed, empty. Riley pointed to the ceiling. "Our tech guy found something. We think you should see it." They pulled down the attic ladder. I hesitated, terrified of what was waiting up there, but I climbed, slowly. What I saw will haunt me forever. In the cramped attic space above the cottage bedroom was a small, makeshift observation room. Blankets on the floor, empty energy drink cans, cigarette butts in a bowl, and 3 screens plugged into old monitors. One showed the bedroom, the other the bathroom, the third a live feed of the front porch. He had been living up here, watching me, watching other guests. There was also a binder, thick, labeled guests. Inside were printouts of women, screenshots, notes like, "Stays up late, dances alone, likes red wine, wears lace, cries when she reads." My stomach twisted. There were at least 15 names, some with multiple pages. Photos taken from angles that could have only come from those hidden cameras that I felt like I was going to throw up. That's when Mendoza said, "We cross-checked a few names. One of the women filed a missing persons report last year. Another one's family says she stopped returning calls after her trip here. Everything blurred. Was I the next one on the list?" They bagged the binder, sealed off the attic, called in a forensic team. But there was still no sign of Steven. 2 hours later, my phone buzzed on a message from an unknown number. "You were special. Too bad you had to ruin it." I showed it to the officers. They traced it to a burner phone. Untraceable. The last ping was near the ferry terminal. He was escaping. Back at the station, I gave my full statement, answered every question, showed them the emails, the video, the message. They told me I'd save not just myself, but possibly other women too. But I didn't feel heroic, that I felt violated, that I couldn't sleep for days. I flew back home with every nerve on fire. Every mirror became suspicious. Every vent, a threat. And when the story hit the news a week later, woman discovers hidden camera network in Airbnb. It went viral. But people in the comments still asked the same awful questions. Why was she traveling alone? Was she exaggerating? Maybe she set it up for attention? No one ever asks why he did it. No one ever asks how many more of him are out there. 2 weeks after I got home, the nightmares still hadn't stopped. I kept imagining Steven under my bed, in my closet, behind every corner. I'd moved out of my apartment and was crashing at my sister's place because I couldn't be alone, not even to sleep. The detective working my case, Riley, called me one afternoon with updates. "We've identified 6 of the women from the binder," he said. 3 of them have come forward. 1, her name is Lauren. She wants to speak to you. I paused. My first instinct was fear, but something inside me said yes. We set up a video call. Lauren was in her late 30s, with deep brown eyes that looked hollow even through the screen. She said, "I stayed in that Airbnb a year ago. I felt like something was wrong, like someone was watching me. I found one camera, just one, and I left. But the police back then didn't take me seriously. They said I probably misunderstood." I shook my head, heart pounding. "I found 3 cameras. And the attic. He was living in the attic." She went silent, then whispered, "I knew it. She wasn't the only one." Over the next few days, 2 more women contacted me. Their stories were horrifying. Some had received anonymous messages after their stays. Others noticed their photos posted on weird online forums. One woman said Stephen had offered to fix the heating during her trip and walked in without knocking. She'd reported him, but the listing had just disappeared for a few weeks and came back under a different name. This wasn't just a one-time thing. It was a pattern. Web. When the court date was announced, my hands trembled reading the notice. Stephen had been caught trying to cross the border. He was being charged with multiple counts of voyeurism, unlawful surveillance, harassment, and more. The prosecutor asked if I'd be willing to testify. It wasn't easy, but I said yes. Standing in that courtroom was one of the hardest things I've ever done. He sat just 15 feet from me, wearing a cheap suit, no emotion on his face. His attorney tried to downplay everything, said he had mental health issues, that it was a personal obsession that went too far. But when I stood up and read my victim impact statement, something shifted. I looked him dead in the eyes and said, "You stole my sense of safety. You stole my sleep, my trust, and my privacy. But you didn't steal my voice." When I sat down, he looked away for the first time. That night, Detective Riley sent me a message. "Thought you might want to know, we decoded a flash drive found in the attic. It had backups. There was more footage. And something else." I called him immediately. He said, "There was a file in there, just text, a kind of journal, more like notes." I asked if he could send it to me. He hesitated. "I'll read you a part," he said. "It's about you." My blood froze. He read aloud, "April guest, different, sad eyes, good energy. She doesn't know she sings to herself when brushing her teeth. She cries quietly, too good for this world. I could fall for someone like that, but she'd never look at me. They never do. So I watch." I went completely still. "He wrote that about me?" "Yeah," Riley said quietly. "He watched everything. He thought he was building relationships, even if it was one-sided." There was a long pause. Then Riley said, "But you got out. You fought your way out. And thanks to you, this stops here." After the trial, I disappeared from the internet for a while. I deleted Instagram, turned off notifications, changed my number. I needed to feel like I was in control again, like no one could reach through a screen and pull me back into that nightmare. But even offline, the fear stayed with me. I started therapy again, this time for trauma. My therapist said something that stuck. "Telling your story isn't reliving it, it's reclaiming it." For a long time, I didn't believe her. But then, one night, I stumbled across a video on YouTube. It was a young woman talking about being stalked by a coworker. She wasn't crying. She wasn't performing. She was just telling the truth. And for the first time in months, I felt less alone. That's when I found tears and truth. That's when I found you. I binge-watched every story. Some were about grief, some about betrayal, others about survival. And I thought, what if I told mine? I filmed the video with shaking hands. It took me 3 tries. In the final cut, I stared into the lens and said, "This isn't a ghost story. This isn't a thriller. This is about what happens when women aren't believed, when privacy becomes a product, when someone takes something from you and you fight to get it back." I showed parts of the footage, blurred, of course. I read the line Stephen wrote about me. "She cries quietly, too good for this world." Then I looked at the camera and said, "You're damn right I cry, but I cry loud now." I ended with a message to anyone watching who'd ever doubted their gut, ignored a red flag, or stayed silent because they were scared no one would believe them. Believe yourself. That's enough to start. I posted it late at night. Didn't even tell my friends. I figured maybe 20 views. 50. Tops.by morning. It had 17,000. By the end of the week, over 300,000. The comments broke me in the best way. I thought I was crazy when I found something weird in my hotel room. "I wish I had your strength. Thank you for giving me some. You just saved me from going to a sketchy listing I was unsure about." The The video didn't make me rich. It didn't solve everything. But it healed something I didn't know could heal. Today, I speak at colleges about digital privacy and safety. I volunteer with an organization that helps women report stalking and surveillance crimes. And yes, I still check every smoke detector, mirror, and vent when I travel. But now I teach others how to do it too. Stephen was sentenced to 12 years in prison, plus probation and mandatory psychological evaluation. His Airbnb account? Gone. His hidden cameras? Seized. His binder? Now evidence in a case that spans 3 provinces. And me? I'm not the same woman who walked into that cottage 2 years ago. I'm stronger, louder, and never, ever silent when something feels wrong. That I still cry sometimes. But as I said, I cry loud. And I'm not crying alone anymore.